the meeting for today, the Ordinary Council meeting, the 26th of May 2020. First we'll take attendance of commencement. So in attendance is myself, CEO, but also Councillor Ireland, Councillor Madsen, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Fechner, Councillor Kunzelman, Councillor Milligan, Councillor Jonik and Councillor Tully. We'll now move and do a welcome to country. So Auntie Lily, accompanied by Auntie Maria, have been invited to come along today. This week is it's in recognition of National Sorry Day, which is today, and also the commencement of National Reconciliation Week this week, with the theme of In This Together. So Auntie Lily and Auntie Maria, would you please come to the lectern?
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and pay our respects to our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community in which we live. I'd like to welcome you all here to Yuggera and Yugapore country, and look forward to getting to know you all as time goes on. Certainly like to welcome our mayor, our first female mayor, so we're all pretty, a lot of us females are a bit happy about that. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Sheila Ireland and Councillor Paul Tully, who we've known for quite a few years. Today being National Sorry Day, the 26th of May. Today I acknowledge National Sorry Day. I acknowledge our elders and ancestors that were forcibly removed from their family, their community and their culture. Today we remember the men and women who were children. We honour the living stolen generation who today are working hard to address the legacies of their experiences so that we as Australians never ever live through this again. Today let us all reflect and play our part in healing and moving forward. Tomorrow is the start of Reconciliation Week, 20th anniversary, and the theme is we're all in this together. So let us all continue to take these journeys together. Also, I'd just like to also say Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, we're the first people of this country. We're only custodians, we don't own this land, we're all here to look after it. And all of you that are here today are also Australians. So let us all embrace our culture. We've got a very long history, and how lucky we are that we've got all the cultures here in Australia. And let us all keep working together. Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to my sister Maria, and she's going to say some words.
Yeah, I talk the nonsense.
No, she doesn't.
I want to pay my respects to my elders and my ancestors that have walked this land before us. We are Yuggera descendants on our mother and grandfather's side. We also have connection to Cullalea and Woolly countries as well. I think it's important in this time, as we're moving forward, that we also remember and reflect our history. Through DNA sequencing now, scientists are now proving that Australian Aboriginal people have had continuous connection to this country for 120,000 years. Human beings have only been in existence for 180,000 years, through whatever theory that you want to follow with that. So 120,000 years is quite remarkable, and it's worthy of always acknowledging. That's why I always like to have an input when we do acknowledgements, because it is quite important to us and all Australians, like Lily said. So if we put that on the world platform, like, you know, Australia should be on the world platform more so. Their Aboriginal history goes way before the pyramids. It goes way before the Chinese dynasties. It survived the rise and fall of the Roman empires. That is on a world platform worthy to acknowledge. Like my sister said, you know, with reconciliation beginning tomorrow, with our sad history being reflected upon today, and it's also our father's birthday, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so Lily and I are only one generation from the missions. So we are descendants of Perga and Deben Creek missions. Our grandfather's parents and older siblings were rounded up from Gatton and Halidon areas and forcibly placed on Deben Creek missions. Our father's family was forcibly removed from Cunnamulla and placed here on Deben Creek, and then went on to Perga missions as well. Our mother's mother, our grandmother, who is very dear to us because of the female storylines in our family. At the age of 10, her and her mother were forcibly removed from Woolly Woolly country, which is up near Camboon, Theodore area, and walked to the old Baramba Aboriginal mission, which is now Cherbourg. And then she was removed to Perga mission. 10 years old, walking, no shoes, with her mother to an unknown future. We could not even, as parents and grandparents, we could not even imagine what that would have been like. So we acknowledge and are grateful that that's now in our history, and we hope it stays there forever. And through our mother and our grandmother, our mother's older brother is our Uncle Harold Blair, who the federal electorate has named. And so, you know, we've done quite significant reconciliation and advocacy work in our communities, and it has been acknowledged through our older people. Our mother herself was Georgina Thompson OAM, and that was because of her work tireless work in the 70s to bring to light the suffering of mental health. And they were our forgotten. And I would love to be alive the day when they do a full inquiry into the abuse in disability support services and homes, because I feel that's always gone unknown. But yeah, that was our history, and you know, my sister and I work tirelessly in this community. We have an organisation, the Warragee Aboriginal Corporation. We've already had over 4,000 community members in 2 years come through our doors. We don't get funded for that, however. We get funded for Skilling Queensland, but the little bit of money extra that we work for, that goes back into our organisation to support our community members. We have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families. We have African Nation women that we support. We've even supported. She was from Canada, Canadian girl. We supported her to get back home to her mother in Victoria, and the list could go on and on and on. We have men. We actually really need an older gentleman's men's group, a yarning circle, because we've had men in their 60s and 70s come into us as women and tell us that they were abused as children, and that's the first time that they've spoken about it. And we've stepped back and we've said, oh, hang on, Uncle, because we've only known these people just to say hello to them in the street if they're from our community. We've never been in their lives, so we weren't aware of this. So we've just said, do you need hang on, Uncle, we'll get a man to come and talk. No, I've told you, so I'm fine now. I've even had a non-Aboriginal man come in our office. He was 88. When he was 12 years old, he still carried the trauma from when he was 12 years old as a non-Indigenous man working on a property and seeing the abuse and neglect of Aboriginal workers on the property and he felt he's carried that for over 70 years, that trauma, and punishing himself that he did nothing. And then we had to let him know that it was okay. He was only a child. He was 12 years old. So what we did for him, we gave him a journal and we said, write your story down. You know, look forward to seeing it one day. So that's just a small part of that we all play in our community. We don't get paid for it, but we do it because we believe our community is just as important in our lives. So I told you I talk a lot. But with that, we just wanted to share that we look at this whole community as a whole as our responsibility as Yagara custodians, because culturally how we look at it, on Yagara country, everybody who is on our country, we have a responsibility to. And as women, more so, we grew up with a code of sisterhood where every woman, no matter where you were from, what your race was, what your national, or what your culture was, what your religion was, every woman stood by each other in times of need. With that, I'm so proud. We are so proud that we have our first female mayor. And we have a gift to share part of our culture with you. And so you've just now received 120,000 years of history. Oh, wow. So thank you for all that you will do.
Thank you, Auntie Lily. I feel very honoured. Auntie Maria and Auntie Lily, thank you for your very gracious welcome to country. Thank you for your tireless work in our community. And also, thank you for sharing with us some sobering truths and acknowledging and helping everyone acknowledge the history and the journey that all Australians take. So you're very gracious in that, so thank you. And the suffering that has happened in the past. And it is a journey for everyone to respect everyone and all cultures. And I'm glad you've raised a few names of people who are like Harold Blair, who was a world famous opera singer, who the federal electorate was named after here. So thank you very much for coming to, I feel very honoured. And I want to also thank Councillor Fechner for suggesting that we have both you two, you, Auntie Maria and Auntie Lily, to come along this morning as part of National Sorry Day. So on behalf of people of Ipswich, we offer you that sorry, and thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you. We'll now move on to the opening prayer. I hand over to Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Mayor. Heavenly Father, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and we wish them peace and well-being, and we hope that this council will work with you not just in words but in deeds. We seek you to be with us in this meeting today. Help us to be an example to others, bring strength and encouragement in whatever we do, and equip us for any task and challenge that may arise. Give us guidance to make wise decisions for the benefit of the community, however hard and unpopular some may be. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. We'll now move on to item D, which is apologies and leave of absence. We are all here. There is no apologies and I've been given no leave of absences. The next on the agenda is E, condolences. I've not been made aware of any condolence motions. So we'll move on to F with tributes. I've not received any tributes. We'll move on to item G, which is presentation of petitions. So I'd like to table the following petition. The petition has been received by Jim Madden, MP, member for Ipswich West, on behalf of residents of Brassel, requesting council demolish and reconstruct the skate park at Sutton Park, Brassel, to meet all relevant safety requirements after full consultation with residents of Brassel. The recommendation for that petition is that the petition be referred to the appropriate council department for the investigation and the preparation of a response or report back to council. So may I have someone to move that?
I'll move.
Councillor Constable, you'll move it. I'll open up for discussion. Would anyone like to make a discussion about the skate park or the petition? Councillor Constable, would you like to stand?
I'd like to speak strongly for this. I was at the community meeting that the member for Ipswich, excuse me, that Ipswich West convened. The main point of this is that the kids of Brassel benefit from this in the sense that they have something to do and somewhere to go and somewhere safe to come together. And that's the main point of it, that they have an activity that they can take part in as opposed to other unsuitable activities.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Anyone else wish to speak to it? Therefore, may I have someone who will second the motion? Oh, sorry.
It was seconded by Councillor Milligan.
I didn't hear what you said.
It was seconded by Councillor Milligan.
Oh, it was seconded by Councillor Milligan, yes. So I had just a motion here before. So Councillor Kunzelman moved it, Councillor Milligan has seconded it. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So I look around the room, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. No one abstained. We'll move on. Public participation. So there we have received a number of public participation submissions. Due to the COVID virus, we can't open up the public gallery in a safe manner. So we've introduced a new tool. So it's a new one for at the council for public participation. We received 6 public participation, I guess, points to be raised by 2 different residents. So I think they've even passed to all the councillors. Would anyone like to speak to any of the... No? So I'll look at one for item number J. There was some feedback from the public on the confirmation of minutes, that before confirming the minutes, council should note that for best practice governance, minutes should state specific reasons why the meeting was closed and a summary of what was discussed while the matter was closed. So you'll notice probably the general purpose meeting last week, we did close the matter twice, one for a legal in confidence discussion and one for a commercial in confidence. So I think probably what the constituent, I actually called this person last night to see what they're after. I think they just like to know why it was commercial in confidence. So if a matter was commercial in confidence because we were discussing tenants, I guess they just like to know that, or leasing. There was also some public participation on item N, report of general purpose committee. So in future, CBD development should not be discussed in the general purposes committee. It is of a major community interest, was their feedback, and that the general purposes committee should not be used for every matter before council. Doing so undermines the new council initiative to accept public community submissions unless submissions are also accepted for the committee. Otherwise, the community can only make submissions after the decisions have effectively been made. Residents of Ipswich are going to get very sceptical of the general purposes committee. So I don't really want to discuss that. Otherwise, I'll just take that on notice. That I'd also like to point out, I'd like to get it confirmed, but I think we're probably one of the only, if not we are one of the few, or if not the only council in Queensland that actually live streams our standing committee meetings as well. So that's to open up that door so people can see how these decisions are discussed, but also the paperwork and the meeting documentation that we get as well. Also received feedback on about meeting policy, that it did come to council, that this matter is a waste of council time and council should focus on strategic issues of importance to the community. It is policy that if we wish to change a policy, that we do need to come forward to the public and be open and come to a council meeting, and I don't think that should change. If there were any changes to entitlements or the way we operate, I think that should be done in the full glare of the public. So, but thank you for the feedback. Also received some feedback on the notice of motion on recognising David Palkey. This particular person was against this. And there was also a discussion on whether to establish the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Standing Committee. There was just a concern there that it's not back to the old days of Ipswich City Properties and it's a board, that it is a true governance committee and making sure that paperwork and documentation is open to the public. The last submission that we received for public participation was also on the CBD redevelopment. And it states if this committee is to be made up of the current councillors, then for the Ipswich community to feel confident in the process for the redevelopment of the CBD going forward, councillors that were part of the past council should not be able to be present to represent the community on this committee. This way the community would feel confident that there is a new focus and transparency from the council. So if anyone wants to make comment on that? If not, I'll note those points. And thank you very much for sharing those. And we look forward to when we can finally open up the public gallery and let everyone in. We'll move on to the confirmation of minutes. Now we've got 2 sets of minutes here, which is unusual. Normally it's just 1 set. Our last, I guess I'll say, ordinary meeting, which was it was actually a special meeting. It was a post-election meeting. So we need to confirm the minutes of the previous ordinary meeting, which was on the 24th of March, which is before the election, and then the ones that we had at the post-election. Now, CEO, none of the councillors here were here for that particular meeting on the 24th of March, so I don't think it's probably fair for the councillors here or myself to move or second. May you, I guess I'll ask for someone to move it, and then I'll ask for you to provide some comment on that or provide an assurance about those minutes. CEO, might I have someone who will move those minutes? Councillor Madsen, thank you very much. CEO, could you?
I believe those minutes are a fair record. Steve Greenman, who was interim administrator at the time and conducted that meeting, is in the chambers, and we believe those minutes are a fair record of that meeting.
I'm getting a head nod from the former interim administrator. Thank you, Mr. Greenwood. Based on that, we have someone who will second those minutes for the 24th of March. Councillor Doyle, thank you very much. All those in favour, raise your hand. Full by division, myself, and looking around the room, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We move on to the minutes for the post-election meeting on the 27th of April. May I have someone who will move those minutes? Councillor Milligan, thank you very much. I'll open up for discussion. Were there any changes that people would like to make? Discussion? No? May I have someone who will second it? Councillor Doyle, thank you very much. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I'll call by division. Looking around, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the mayoral minute. Am I missing something? During my election campaign, I announced a 100-day Fresh Start plan. Part of that 100-day Fresh Start plan was a commitment to commence action to clean up the Bremer River. So today I table this mayoral minute to you with the recommendation that a full report on council's roles and responsibilities and the management of the Bremer River and the Ipswich waterways be presented to council for consideration of future actions and investment priorities. In reading through who's actually looking after the Bremer River and the Brisbane Rivers catchment area, I found that there's a multitude of government, non-government, council, state government, all sort of groups and organisations who've been working on things. So as part of this motion, you will see this mayoral minute, I am asking for a complete report on all the players there, how they interact, who looks after what, so that way we can actually look through it and work on a plan to improve our beautiful river in Ipswich. By moving this as a mayoral minute, I've essentially moved and seconded it, and now I open up for discussion. Councillor Fechner?
As a new member of the Ipswich Rivers Improvement Trust, we welcome this health check and we welcome working with other organisations to improve our waterways here in Ipswich. We met last week for the first time and I know the entire trust is very keen to work with you on this, so I look forward to bringing back some of those reports from the Ipswich Rivers Improvement Trust to inform you a little bit more about what we've been doing or what has been done in the past, and look forward to working towards a better environmental outcome for our waterways in Ipswich moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Councillor Madsen?
I'd just like to echo those sentiments, as I too am on the trust with Councillor Fechner. I'd like to commend the Mayor on this motion, because if we look at how the rivers have been treated in South East Queensland, my family's been living in the Ipswich area since before 1860, and we try to imagine what a river was like, but the rivers were like back then. They were certainly better than what they are now. So I think it's important to pursue initiatives such as these so that 160 years from now, we're looking at it in an improved state of affairs and not something that has continued to decline. I want to see the river be healthy, and I support this initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. Any other discussion? No, I just want to say during the election campaign and chatting with residents, there's obviously a huge passion for our river. We are a river city, and it's been a working river for over 160 years, as Councillor Madsen talked about. So I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of this, please raise your hand. I'll call by division. Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to declarations of interest on the matters that are on the agenda. Beforehand, Councillor Madsen has reported a conflict of interest in item N1, the reception and consideration of the General Purposes Committee report for items 11, 12, 13 and 14 in that report. And Councillor Fechner has a conflict of interest or a material personal interest in item N1, reception and consideration of the General Purposes Committee for items 11, 12, 13 and 14. So that was noted. Does it need to be made again, or it's already been a declared
I think we could just note them in the minutes.
We'll just note them in the minutes. Thank you.
Will it apply to the establishment of the...
Councillor Madsen.
Will it apply to the establishment of the committee regarding the CBD and item 8.3?
Would you like to ask the question?
I'm unsure. I thought it would.
So if you would like to ask
Okay.
to vote, I think would be under...
In accordance with section 175E of the Local Government Act 2009, I declare that I have a conflict of interest in item 8.3, titled Establishment of Ipswich Central Redevelopment Standing Committee, as I am the Assistant Secretary of the Ipswich Trades Hall and Labor Day Committee, which manages the Ipswich Trades Hall, which is very much adjacent to this redevelopment, and as such I'd like to remove myself from the meeting while the matter is discussed and voted on.
We have to do one at a time, if that's okay, Councillor Fechner.
He said he's removing, so you don't need a vote.
You're going to remove yourself. There's no vote. Okay, thank you. Councillor Fechner.
In accordance with section 175C2 of the Local Government Act 2009, I declare that I have a material personal interest in item number 8.3. I declare that I stand to gain benefit or suffer loss because of my business interest at 164 Brisbane Street, Ipswich, in the top of town directly.
Thank you very much. And so noted, so we'll ask you to remove yourself from those areas. Thank you. Now, the next item is item M, which is business outstanding. So the first thing we need to do is look at matters that were lying on the table that are going to be dealt with.
Through the Mayor,
Yes, Councillor Doyle.
I'd like
Ask you to stand.
to move that the following matters be lifted from the table and dealt with accordingly. Item M1, relation to Charity of the Environment Foundation Limited, the 2018 and 2019 financial statements and financial management report, as well as item M2, Cherish the Environment Foundation, the council representatives.
Okay. Thank you. So this is just to lift the matter off the table so we can then discuss it. May I have a seconder? Councillor Madsen, thank you very much. Any discussion? Those in favour, please raise your hand. Look around the room, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the matter has now been lifted off the table. So we'll go to the motion. So look at M1, Cherish the Environment Foundation Limited, the recommendation that the financial statements for the Cherish Environment Foundation Limited as detailed in attachment 1 of the report by the Principal Financial Accountant dated the 21st of April 2020 be received and noted, and that recommendation B, that the 2018-2019 Financial Management Report for the Cherish the Environment Foundation Limited, as detailed in attachment 2 of the report by the Principal Financial Accountant dated the 21st of April 2020 be received and noted. May I have someone to move that, please? Councillor Kunzelman, thank you very much. I have someone who would second that. Councillor Ireland, thank you very much. I'll open up for discussion on those financial statements. In that case, I'll go straight to a vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand by division. I note that it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to M2, which is the Cherish the Environment Foundation Council Representatives. So we have 2 recommendations there. A is that Council nominate 2 councillors to be representatives for the Cherish the Environment Limited Board, and that Cherish the Environment Foundation Limited be advised of Council's nomination as its representatives for the Cherish the Environment Limited Board. So we do need that discussed as to who would be that, and this is why the matter was laid on the table. So I'll now, let's see who would like to move that recommendation.
I would like to move that we amend recommendation A so that it states that council nominate myself and a suitably qualified member of staff as determined by the CEO to be its representatives for the Cherish the Environment Limited Board, and that we adopt recommendation B.
So do we have to move it first before we amend it?
No,
We can just amend
no,
it?
you don't have to move the staff recommendation.
Okay. So I'll just wait for Vicky to, that council. We're just making sure that the, that's okay?
Yeah,
That's okay?
It's not an amendment.
That's a,
It's just the original motion.
that council nominate Councillor Andrew Fechner and a suitably qualified member of the staff as determined by the CEO to be its representatives for the Cherish the Environment Limited Board. And then the next recommendation is that Cherish the Environment Foundation Limited be advised of Council's nomination as its representatives for the Cherish the Environment Limited Board. So Councillor Fechner, you've moved that. May I have someone who will second that? Councillor Doyle, thank you very much. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Fechner.
I think it's worth noting for the public that the aim of Cherish the Environment Foundation is to increase the area of natural bushland through the environment, through offsets, and increase the level of awareness and understanding in the community of Ipswich environmental values. My appointment to this board will help inform how we manage the relationship between Ipswich City Council and Cherish moving forward.
Thank you very much. It's quite a task to take on, so thank you very much, Councillor Fechner. Any other discussion? Councillor Madsen?
I'd just like to commend Councillor Fechner for showing leadership and taking on this role. I'm sure he'll bring greater clarity to the people of Ipswich about how Cherish operates, and that'll be a worthwhile endeavour.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. I think Councillor Fechner's background in business will also help a lot with what he's doing here as well, so thank you. With that, I'll go to any other discussion. Go straight to a vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. I'll call by division. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the consideration of the committee reports. So this is the General Purpose Committee meeting that we had last Tuesday. So we'll be considering those matters, noting that items 11, 12, 13, 14, Councillors Madsen and Fechner have a conflict of interest or an MPI. So, so we'll look at all the matters of the General Purpose Committee, except for 11, 12, 13 and 14, and obviously we'll ask you about. So I was going to go through each item.
You normally move them en bloc in this organisation. That would be the case.
Yeah, I was just asking the CEO, because normally would move it all on block. My concern is that there are certainly things that were discussed at the General Purposes Committee that I think many of us would like to raise at the ordinary meeting today. In particular, we've had some more information come forward about the Brisbane Lions and a few other things like that. So I guess what would be the
What would normally happen is you would move en bloc all those ones that the meeting is happy to move. So, for example, you're going to pull out all the ones on the Ipswich Central, but you may pull out the matter on the Brisbane Lions. So you pull out each matter that you wish to discuss, and then they would be discussed separately. So the whole idea would be you would then move a motion that might include items 1, 4, 7, 9, 12, goes on block, and then you would discuss the unmoved items separately.
Actually, just looking at the agenda item, so that's okay. In that case, I guess I'd like to move that item, I think it's called 10, because obviously we changed the naming around from last time, which is the funding arrangement for the Brisbane Lions Stadium. We also, I guess, removed from that block. So I'm proposing that we look at the General Purposes Committee meeting minutes. Reports, and move items and vote on items 1 through to 9. Discuss 10 separately, and obviously 11, 12, 13, 14 will be done without councillors Manson and Fechner.
That's correct. So there needs to be a motion to that effect.
So I recommend that the General Purposes Committee report number 2020-01 of the 19th of May be received and adopted with the exception of items 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14. I have someone who will second that. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any discussion on that? No? In that case, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll then go to item number 10 on that,
Which is a Brisbane Lions matter.
which is the Brisbane Lions matter. Pardon me. So the officer's report back then made a few recommendations, and just pardon me while I look through. Because we did change the recommendation from memory.
Changed the last point
Yes, I think we changed it to a,
to the matter return to council for finalisation. Wade?
I'm just looking at what those recommendations were, because obviously it's not.
It's on page 47.
On the 10. Wonderful. So at the General Purposes Committee, the recommendations were, they're not up there, that the council into a funding deed with the Brisbane Lions for the construction of the stadium and the embellishment. And I think the only part that we changed was that would come back, that D was that council pursuant to section 257 of the Local Government Act, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the authority to negotiate matters and refer the matter to council for finalisation. So it would come back to us before it was finalised. May I have someone who will move that? Thank you, Councillor Milligan. And then for discussion, I'll ask the General Manager responsible, Mr Madigan, to come down. For those who watched the General Purposes Committee, you'll remember that we had a long discussion about this particular matter. And I think it relied upon Mr Madigan's background in investigations in police matters to ferret out things. I understand you would like to provide an update, Mr Madigan?
That's correct. Thank you, Ben. So the update is in the briefing provided at the General Purposes Committee. It was indicated and asked by the councillors whether a previous council resolution had in fact gone through the council in relation to the funding of the Brisbane Lions and the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, which was non-binding at the time. The response from myself, to my knowledge, was at the time we weren't aware of a previous resolution. We hadn't been able to locate one within the council systems. Following that meeting, further research was conducted and we did track down a resolution from the council. So the way that occurred was the agenda item with the MOU attached to it was a late item to the City Management Board, which at the time was a closed board that then reported through to the City Management and Finance Committee, and then ultimately a resolution was passed. The report itself notes the MOU, and the recommendation is that Council authorise the CEO to negotiate effectively in accordance with the commercial terms as outlined in the MOU. However, the actual report itself did not commit Council financially to a commitment to the Brisbane Lions Stadium. The updated report that was presented to the interim administrator last year, and then the report before Council now clearly articulates what Council's financial commitment to the project will be, and was seeking a resolution in that regard.
No, thank you. Just to be quite clear that so thank you for forwarding on the minutes and the memorandums that are relevant. And at the time, were they ever published publicly?
No, not that I could see. So there were minutes. So the board minutes go through to the City Management Committee, and it effectively adopts the minutes of that board, and then it went through to the council meeting. So the minutes of the council meeting did not effectively or accurately reflect the actual resolution in accordance with that particular item.
So could you repeat that again?
So the resolution, the minutes of the ordinary council meeting made no specific mention of the resolution of the MOU as adopted by the board and then the subsequent committee. It was just a blanket adoption of the committee minutes.
Okay. So there was no mention of the $12 million? No. Okay. Thank you. I'll open up further discussion. Any questions?
Can I just clarify one item, please? So, did you say that recommendation didn't recommend at that time the figure of 12 million or any particular figure at all?
That's correct, yes. It was just that the CEO be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the MOU in accordance with the general conditions of the MOU.
And that's effectively what's happening now?
That's correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madigan. I really appreciate that. I know you put a lot of work, and I'm really impressed with your investigative skills and your team to find all this paperwork. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. I'll open this up to, so Councillor Madigan did forward these documents on to us on Friday. Was it Friday? Oh, like last week when we found them. In going through them, Councillor Tully, I can see that you were the, I think, acting mayor and chair of that particular meeting. So do you mind providing some insight on how the figure of 12 million was established?
Well, I'm not aware. Yeah, well, I'm not aware of the date or the minutes now, and I thought Mr. Madigan said that there was no adoption or reference to the 12 million.
So these were sent to you, to all the councillors last week? The minutes of the meeting of the 27th of June 2017? Where you were the acting mayor and chair. And I believe you're also on the board of the City Management and Finance and Community Engagement Committee, which looked at it. I just wanted to know, was there a discussion about, because obviously in that memorandum there was the heads of agreement where the 12 million was mentioned, was certainly stated, but it's never been published. So I guess I'm looking at two things. One is, how did that figure of 12 million...
I've got no independent recall, but that would have been, I presume, an officer's report in relation to that. But Mr. Madigan saying that there was no adoption of any figure at all back in 2017.
Well, I think what Mr. Madigan said is that the resolution passed, but there was no specific mention of the 12 million. But obviously the MOU that was provided to all those there did specifically state $12 million in the heads of agreement was attached to that. So do you have any recollection?
No recollection.
I'll ask you to stand when I...
Well, I have no recollection of that.
Through the Mayor, Councillor...
You need to stand up, sorry.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Tully, we're just trying to get an understanding of the $12 million figure. Several councillors, trying to piece together the figures. You're not able to assist.
Well, not in relation to the figures that would have been contained in reports. If the officers are happy to brief me and provide those original reports, I'm happy to give any background that arises from that.
Councillor Tully, in the information given to us by Mr. Madigan, the minutes of the special council meeting on the 14th of June 2017, where you were a board member, also noted that as well. Do you have any recollection of the $12 million?
No, not at the moment. That's why I've just asked to be provided all of the information so I can put that in its historical context.
So, Councillor, that was sent out last week to all the councillors. Have you read it?
Well, I'm not sure that provides all of the officers' reports and all of the information that would have been presented to the meeting. But if Mr Madigan's able to provide that, and I can have a discussion with him, happy to provide any other information that comes to light.
So nothing. I'm not trying to have a go. I'm just trying to understand how a council makes a decision about $12 million.
Well, I don't believe it. Well, from what I'm told, it didn't make a decision about $12 million because Mr Madigan said that figure was not adopted. There was no adoption of any figure.
Well, it was agreed in the MOU.
Well, that's different from what Mr Madigan said.
Mr Madigan, may I ask you to come back down to clarify? So I guess we're looking at the $12 million. May you provide some clarification?
Certainly.
Was it actually agreed to at council or not?
That's correct. The council report, the officers' report that went through to the City Management Board had the MOU as an attachment to that, but the report itself did not state any actual dollar amount that was being committed to council other than contained in the MOU and the attachment itself. The resolution that went for council was to authorise the CEO to negotiate and finalise the terms of the MOU in accordance with the commercial arrangements as specified in the MOU, but the resolution itself did not state a specific amount for council to provide those funds.
But the draft MOU was attached to the report
It was, yes.
with the $12 million on it, from
That's
what I could see. Okay, so it was there.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr Madigan.
And Mayor, could I just clarify that it was the interim administrator who agreed to that $12 million last year? Is that correct?
I think that came out the General Purpose Committee, yes, as part of the tidy up. Okay. So are there any other discussion points on that? In that case, we did have who moved to a council. Milligan, may I have someone who will, or if there's any other discussion about Brisbane Lions, that anyone would like to make?
I guess,
Councillor Fickner?
Mayor, that it's worth noting in the council ordinary meeting, and as a little bit of a rehash from the General Purposes Committee, just to get everyone up to date, this is a big investment for the city, $13.6 million within the funding arrangement is a lot of money. It looks like the ratepayer will be up for about $4.5 million of that. But if we're looking, well, that's the cost of the actual input from council and the ratepayer. What are the benefits that we're getting out of that? Well, as discussed in the General Purposes Committee, we're getting a second field that wasn't in the program for the next 10 years. So I think that the sporting groups and community groups of Springfield can celebrate in knowing that they've got a really wonderful facility for them all to enjoy down there way ahead of time. So it's such a wonderful thing for the community, not only to have the Lions there, but to also have that second field for community use. I think that we need to celebrate that and acknowledge that that's a great use of our money, and we'll move the community forward down there.
Thank you, Councillor Fickner. Councillor Jonick, I think would like to.
I just wanted to add to what Councillor Fickner was referring to, that it will be an asset to our city. The jobs that it will create will have a minimum value of $30 million per annum, and we will own the asset and lease that back to the Lions as well. So the past is there, but then the future is definitely positive in this regard.
Thank you, Councillor Jonick. Councillor Tully.
Yes, Mayor, this certainly has my support. It's with the training facility for the Lions and the Women's Lions team. It's a real coup for the city of Ipswich, which I've said previously. I think it's the first time that any national football team has established its headquarters and training headquarters in the city of Ipswich, and it's an opportunity that we should embrace. The women, of course, will be playing their games there, and with the proximity to Brisbane and to the northern suburbs of Logan City, as well as the Ipswich suburbs, I think it's going to be a focal point for our city. Having said that, I'd love to see an NRL team based in Ipswich as well, and that's a matter which might become more prominent within the next 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Tully.
Through the Mayor.
I think Councillor Doyle.
Mayor, I would just like to publicly concur with Councillor Fechner's comments and fellow councillors' comments. This is a really important project for Ipswich, the entire city. It's great for community sport, but it is also it's going to attract a lot of visitors to wider Ipswich and hopefully our CBD. So I really want to call out and highlight that this project is very, very important. I want to make it very clear that any discussions that we've had here today around the cost of the project is purely a governance issue. We, the new council, have been brought in and are expected to make decisions based on historical transactions that have been put in place by former councils. Given my background, the Mayor's background and some of our fellow councillors, it wouldn't be right to just simply approve these matters and let them proceed without any kind of investigation into the underlying transactions and a little bit of due diligence on the underlying documents. So I just wanted to make that very clear. It's a very different issue. I'm very supportive of the Brisbane Line project. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Madsen.
I concur with Councillor Doyle and how important it is to follow due process. I just wanted to add that it's a 50-year lease, and a large piece of the investment required for that stadium comes from the state government, the federal government and the Australian Football League and the Brisbane Lions themselves. There's a lot of money being brought in here that isn't council money that will all contribute to the economy of Ipswich, and it's important we consider those benefits moving forward because it appears to be a boon, absolute boon.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. Before I go to a vote, can I just say I'm really excited that the Brisbane Lions are coming to Ipswich. Fully support the project, and I note that I think the federal government's put $15 million. I think the state's put in something similar. Another $10 million has come from other parties as well. It is a tremendous boon. We welcome the Brisbane Lions to Ipswich wholeheartedly. Just need to make sure, like the Deputy Mayor said, to make sure that the governance and certainly when it was first announced, and it did come up at the General Purposes Committee, that there was no mention at the time of when it was announced that the council would be spending any money. In fact, it was my recollection of the media that the only thing the council was providing was land and no cash. So it's just really, we just need to be really clear as to what our investment is into this really terrific, and it is a world-class facility for us here, so we really do welcome it. Based on that, I'll go straight to a vote. We've got a mover. I'll need a seconder. A seconder for this, Councillor Johnnick. And then I'll call a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I'll call a division. It is unanimous. Thank you. We'll now move on to items that were 11, 12, 13, 14 of the General Purposes Committee. So I'll ask Councillor Madsen and Councillor Fechner to please leave the room. Don't go too far away.
Far enough that we can't be there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll look at item 11. I'm just looking for this. I think there's something we wish to raise. Item number 12. I'll go through each of these ones individually. Might be just quicker and easier, I think, rather than as a block. So number 11, which is the Ipswich Central Program Report that was brought to the General Purposes Committee. And the recommendation was that the report on the Ipswich Central Program reports 23 to 24 be received and the contents noted. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Johnick, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. I'll open up for discussion. Councillor Mr. Madigan, could I ask you to step back down? One of the things that was, so I'll just say your name and
Thank you. Sean Madigan, General Manager of Coordination of Performance.
some of the public participation that we've had is for those reports, reports number 23 and 24, I think are confidential reports. And I wouldn't mind working with you on seeing if we can declassify them in a bit. There's certainly a lot of interest in the CBD and how the project is progressing. From what I can see in those reports, it's progressing really well, risk is being well managed, the construction's meeting all the milestones, and there's certainly a thirst out there. So I just wanted to get your opinion. Do you think we could redact part of that and still make a little bit of it open to the public?
Yeah, certainly, Mayor. There is information in there that is commercial in confidence. That's the reason for it being confidential in nature.
Yeah.
However, we can certainly tailor the report so that it is all publicly available, and that information can be provided to, with Council's approval, a standing committee. So we can have a very structured reporting regime for the Council that goes through to the standing committee if it is approved today, which will then all be publicly available. And only under exceptional circumstances will we present something to that committee that is in confidence in nature. Because at the end of the day, as you said, the project is performing very well. It is on time, it is on budget. The risks are being managed effectively, and I think that's something that we should demonstrate to the community in our reporting.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other discussions on item 11? Thank you very much, Mr. Madigan. Any other discussion for item 11? The General Purposes Committee, I'll call a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I know that it's unanimous for those in the room. Move to item 12, which is the tender consideration plan. Noting, I think, at the General Purposes Committee, we did close it down to have a commercial in confidence discussion. But the recommendation from that was that Council resolved to prepare a quote or tender consideration plan for the appointment of a retail leasing agent in accordance with the local government regulations. May I have someone move that? Councillor Johnick, a seconder. Councillor Milligan, thank you. I'll open up to discussion. I think, CEO, my main issues was to talk about the fact that this tender consideration plan should address the actual performance of who's being considered, and their performance to date, and also further support to mitigate that same risk. But also to the tender consideration plan should review and address the considerations of that report as well. Any other discussion on that? I'll move it to a vote. All those in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you. Items 13 and 14, I was going to, well, I'll move the rest as a block for those two. Oh, that's not what we'll have to do. I'll do them individually. We'll move on to item 13, which is that Council resolved to approve the development application. The Council, so we're noting the General Purpose Committee where the Council resolved to approve the development application, subject to conditions in accordance with Section 60 of the Planning Act. I have a mover, Councillor Milligan, a seconder, Councillor Ireland, thank you very much. I open up for discussion. I'll go straight to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand, and I call the division. Councillor Doyle, you're not voting? Yep. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll then move on to the last matter in the General Purposes Committee, which is the governance arrangements for the Ipswich Central Development. And I know there's been some discussion certainly in the community about this since we had it at the General Purposes Committee. So I'll open it up now to see who would like to move the recommendation, which is that the Chief Executive Officer prepare a further report for consideration by the Council based on the principles outlined in option 1 of the report, which was tabled, terms of reference.
Through the Mayor, I'll move.
And you'll move that. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. May I have someone who will second? Councillor Milligan. I'll now open it up for discussion. I guess I'll say that the feedback I've received so far that people certainly want a way to see the progress of the CBD redevelopment. They want access to as many documents as possible, but also just to know when things are opening and how decisions are being made. And so this particular recommendation is looking at having a separate standing committee, which will obviously meet monthly as a standing committee, but also come to and that report will come to the ordinary council meeting once a month as well. So there'll be 2 reports that'll be coming to the public to be made open. The feedback I've had from the community is that they do want things to be open, but also they want especially the CBD traders, want the opportunity to participate with any of the work that's being done by that standing committee as well.
Through the Mayor.
Please, Deputy Mayor.
I concur. I've received a lot of feedback from constituents and local business owners in particular that they certainly want to be involved in the redevelopment of the CBD and where possible have input and provide feedback. Community consultation is important and key to the success of the redevelopment of Nicholas Street, given that the redevelopment is heavily reliant on activation by our residents. They need to be invested at the very beginning. So I also agree that a separate standing committee is definitely warranted for such a large project, not only for the benefit of that project, but to ensure it doesn't detract from any of the other important work council is doing all throughout Ipswich, not just the CBD. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I guess what we'd be looking at is actually a variation to talk about who's actually going to be on the...
We'll get to the matter in item O. We're not actually debating O, we're just talking about it in item O.
Yep. So we've got Councillor Doyle has moved, Councillor Milligan has seconded. Any other discussion? In that case, we'll go straight to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I note that the vote has been unanimously in favour. Thank you. Now, we'll ask Councillor Madsen to come back in. Can I just check? So, did Councillor they said that we'll have a conflict of interest for this particular matter?
On item.
Oh, sorry, on
Item 3 and
item 3.
3.
Okay, so we'll bring them back in for this.
We actually probably could have moved.
Yes, we could have, yeah. Oh, well, next one. Thank you. So Councillor Madsen and Councillor Fichtner have returned. We're now on item number O, officers' reports. We were noting the quarterly performance reports. May I have someone move those quarterly performance reports? Yep, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Doyle. Someone who second them? Councillor Kunzelman, thank you very much. I now open up for discussion on the quarterly performance report. Councillor Ireland.
I hope I'm having a bit of trouble here, but I hope that I'm on the
After you
right
to stand,
one.
sorry. Thanks, Councillor.
I'd like to lay on the table, I think that's the correct wording, on the second part of the attachments, which I can't open at the moment, on page 118 of 163, on the second one, my recollection of it was design and deliver a collection of library pods at strategic locations throughout the city. Have I got the right attachment?
I'm on page 118, Councillor Islands. I'm just... Design and deliver a collection of library pods at strategic locations throughout the city.
I just want to discuss my recollections of the library pods was that at a June 2018 council meeting, it was decided to test out the concept with a single test pod, which was decided to be located at Carolee. We talked about at the time where else we might be able to put the test pods, but I don't think we actually passed a motion that where they would go or, you know, what was going to happen. My recollection is that we'd wait for a report to come back on how well the pod did. Now, I imagine the pod's done quite well during the last 6 weeks because I've been using it as well. So it's been in good use. But I think I remember immediately prior to June 18 decision, Council decided to commission a report into what should be the Council's strategies for libraries into the future. Now, many changes have taken place, and I'm not sure whether we've actually got a report back on that. So, do we have a current library policy going forward? Have we looked at a current library policy? So, could I just lay that on the table, and could we have a look at it?
I want to, but I might ask the relevant General Manager, Sonia Cooper, to come down. Knowing that you only started earlier this year, Sonia, to find out.
It's not Sonia's, it's Ben's.
Oh, Ben, sorry, Ben, sorry. I could just state your name and position. Thanks, Ben. Mr. Pole.
Mayor and Councillors, Ben Pole, General Manager, Community, Cultural and Economic Development.
Councillor Iron asked some questions about, obviously 2018, her recollection was that they were looking at a library policy and obviously an evaluation and a strategy. Are you aware of anything like that happening or the status of that?
Certainly aware of those original discussions. If I may take on notice and provide Council with a follow-up report.
Yeah, I've laid it on the table so it can. I've laid it on the table so that it can come back to us with some.
From a procedural, perspective, laying the table would just hold up the quarterly report. I think probably what you're wanting is probably a report
on
back to
libraries.
you on the libraries. And I note that obviously in there you're saying that they there is a report going on. You're doing an investigation at the moment.
Yeah, so maybe if the criteria of that report coming back to Council outlines the current strategy, as well as the deployment, specifically the deployment of the library pods and how those pods fit within the broader libraries and customer services strategy.
Okay. So will we just do a variation?
Should be a
of
motion to adopt that.
Excuse me, Mayor, but the.
Excuse me,
And then a supplementary motion to request the report on that. So 2 motions.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. And if you'd like to proceed, we can vote on the quarterly performance and then we can do a supplementary motion to get a report.
Okay, it's just that with the comments in that page, it says that where council is investigating the most viable location for a second library pod, but I don't think it's in the policy yet. We haven't passed the policy that we go ahead and build them. That's I guess my point.
Right. Well, I think that's what we'll find out in the report. Yes. Okay. So we'll go back to going to the original motion, which is noting the quarterly performance report. And we've had the Deputy Mayor has moved that and Councillor Kunzelman has seconded that. May I have a vote of those? Any other discussion, sorry, about the quarterly report? So Councillor Fechner?
I just think that it's worth noting that a lot of work goes into the projects that we see in the quarterly report, so it might be appropriate for us to acknowledge all of the hard work of the council officers within Ipswich City Council, working really hard to move our city forward and in the right direction. So I just want to acknowledge that in acceptance of this quarterly report.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Yes, there's a lot of hard work, blood, sweat and tears goes behind these and the work that goes on. I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Around, it's unanimous. Thank you. I'll now move to the supplementary motion. And I'll just check, Councillor, if you're happy with this supplementary motion. That at page 118, I'll wait for Vicky to, that a report outlining the current strategy and deployment of library pods be presented to a future meeting. I think, Councillor, I was probably looking at something more broader, not just library pods, it was libraries.
I think we need the strategy going. I think that we need a strategy going, you know, I'd like to know or see what is the strategy going forward, what is our new library policy?
Through the Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Doyle.
I think I think we are looking for a broader report that will outline the current strategy and views, and certainly would like to see some research or data regarding the way forward for libraries in this day and age. That would help.
Thank you.
Inform.
Maybe change that motion just so that we're looking for a report outlining the current strategy for libraries and including that report, what's happening in regards to the library pods and so on.
Through you,
Any
Mayor.
suggestions?
Yeah. I'm just saying it's really useful that the meeting is happy with the motion, so that you all almost workshop if you're collaborative
Okay.
on what goes on there, because what goes on there is what the staff will do.
Yes, yes. So that's why we're. I think we're looking at more which of the library pods as well, not just.
So the current strategies and policies for libraries.
Can I ask you to stand, Councillor Doyle?
Sorry. Apologies, Mayor. I think it needs to read that a report outlines the current strategies and policies for libraries, including
Yeah. So remove deployment, so including the library pods.
deployment of library pods.
You can future.
Including deployment of future library pods. Future deployment. Sorry, yeah, that's okay. Future deployment.
Future's perfect.
It's better. Please feel free to contribute if you wish to. Yes, Councillor Kunzelman?
Through you, Mayor, it's probably obvious, but we would like to see some figures on the actual usage of the library pod at Carolee.
So usage of the current Carolee library pod
Yes, thank you.
is included in that report. And I would assume that costings and so on and timings and schedules would be in that report.
Obviously, then Councillor Owen would be happy with it, and you need a second.
And costings too. I'll just defer to Councillor Allen to see if she's happy with that motion.
Well,
Supplementary motion?
I'm just wondering if we have a new library policy. Is there a current library policy? I guess that's what I'm
I think
asking.
we've
So that's what's going to come out with the current strategy.
Mr. Pole's coming back down. A lot of things that were agreed to in 2018 didn't proceed, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Councillor Owen, through the Mayor. Current libraries and customer services strategy and has been, I suppose, amended from the 2018 discussion that you referenced. I'll have to come back in relation to a specific library policy, though. I don't believe there is, as such, a libraries policy of council. There are library strategies, operating plans, but a libraries policy as such, I'll need to reference.
When was the last library strategy released?
So it was developed off the back of the conversation that's been referenced here. So throughout 2018 into 2019, an update to the libraries strategy or an updated library strategy was in development.
Right.
With the restructure of April, May, June 2019, that approach has had to be revisited. There's a changed structure and therefore libraries and customer services were brought together. So the intent was to take the original library strategy, evolve it along with the new structure of the organisation, which included customer service, and I suppose present to the new council an evolved version that included both libraries and customer services. So at the moment, I'd suggest that the current version is the version that was being drafted prior to the restructure. And what we're doing at the moment, we've undertaken a substantial amount of workforce review, as well as our operating plan, and reviewed that with a view to bring libraries and customer services more logically together.
I do understand, Mr. Hull, that during the inter-administration period that it went from 8 divisions to 5 divisions, and with the electoral offices and the council offices closing, that there's a focus for the libraries to be customer service centres as well, and as well as having meeting rooms and so on. So just to try, I think, so the current policy, the current strategy for libraries would have been the old strategy from
under the previous
hasn't
structure.
been a new one yet. And I guess when you're, so may I just, you're happy with the supplementary motion? That a report outlining the current strategy and policies for libraries, including the future deployment of library pods, be presented to a future meeting, as well as the usage and costings of the Carol Lee Library Pod.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
That's okay.
Sorry, bad habit. Thank you, Mayor.
That's okay. Councillor, thank you. Will I have someone, any other discussion on that particular? Anyone to second that? Councillor Doyle, thank you very much. Any other discussion on that? Yes, Councillor Milligan.
Mayor, should we place a timeline on this? It says just a future meeting. That could be next month.
Ready for the next ordinary meeting? Okay.
Yeah, so
To be complete by the...
make it timely.
Thank you. With your concurrence, I guess what Councillor Milligan is looking at the fact that that report comes to us at the next ordinary meeting. Are you okay with that?
I agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Milligan.
Councillor Doyle, do you concur with that? Thank you. I then take it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Right, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to the report, Audit and Risk Management Committee, 2020 of the second one of 2020. That's on the 20th of May. There's quite a few recommendations here. And our councillor representatives are Councillor Doyle and Johnnick on the Audit and Risk Committee. So we have 5 recommendations going forward. I'll have someone move those, please. Councillor Doyle. And seconder, Councillor Johnnick. I'll now open the floor up for discussion on the Audit and Risk Committee meeting recommendations. No discussion? Councillor Doyle would like to make comment?
Through the Mayor, I just want to confirm that Councillor Johnnick and myself attended our first Audit Committee meeting last week. It's comforting to know that the committee, the Audit Committee, is made up from with professionals, external professionals who are very highly regarded in their various fields. We are in good company in that regard, and Ipswich City Council certainly is in safe hands with an external body like this, overseeing our governance, audit and risk strategies. Just in relation to the final, sorry, I think it was F?
E.
Oh, E, yeah. Presentation relating to Council's IT General Control Framework. That was raised as an issue, something that the committee certainly want to get comfortable with and get their heads around. And another issue raised was also in relation to Council's procedures, policies and strategies throughout the organisation within various departments around privacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If there's no other discussion, I'll move that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I see it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 3, the establishment of the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Standing Committee. We'll ask Councillor Madsen and Fechner to leave the room again. Thank you. There are 3 recommendations in this, that the council establish the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee, that the council determine the membership of the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee, including the appointment of the chair of the committee, that the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee be held 10 minutes after the conclusion of the General Purposes Committee, which will be monthly, on the 23rd of June and the 21st of July, with further meetings to be confirmed. And also attached for review was the terms of reference for the committee as well. So I'm guessing we'll be looking at someone to move and second this, and then we can look at, I guess, making a variation as to who should be that committee on that membership. So I'll ask someone to move that. Councillor Milligan, and a second, I think Councillor Johnnick had a hand up. Councillor Johnnick, thank you very much. I think we're probably looking to discuss the step. Well, I guess A is that the council established the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee, and I'll just reiterate the feedback from the public to have information on this, and also note that there was some also feedback about whether anyone who was associated with the Ipswich City properties should be on that committee as well as looking at who should be chairing it.
Through the Mayor. I too would just like to confirm, I guess, and make it pretty clear that any individual that would like to be a member of this committee needs to make a firm commitment to community consultation and involving the public.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other discussion on the makeup of the committee, membership?
Through the Mayor, there's certainly a number of councillors, I'm aware, are very interested in taking up a spot on that committee. So I guess we just need to have a discussion around what the correct makeup will be, councillors versus council officers, and what
It's
only councillors, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. And noting the fact that under our meeting policies and procedures, we actually can't be making decisions outside this room, so we're actually having this discussion here and so on. Certainly my views on the membership, I guess I'd be interested to see who's interested to being on this particular standing committee and who'd be interested in being in chair. I guess I'll open up to the floor as to raising your hand if you're interested in being on that committee. Myself. So I can see the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kunzelman, Councillor Jonick and Councillor Miller and myself have raised our hands. I certainly would think, Councillor Doyle, being the fact that you are the Division 3 councillor, that you would be an ideal chair, but I do know you hold a number of other appointments. That would be...
Through the Mayor, I would be more than happy with the support of fellow councillors to take on the role of chair.
Yep. So I guess, Councillor Jonick?
I just wanted to add that this project is something of substantial stature for our community, so it needs to be given the correct amount of attention that it deserves for our city to come together and to really get inspired about our CBD again. So we really need to baby this project and focus all our energy on it. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity. It's retail, it's business, it's definitely what we're about. So I think, yeah, we need the focus in that area.
Through the Mayor.
Yes.
I concur with Through the Mayor, I'd just like to concur with Councillor Jonick's comments. Whilst this is, I'm very conscious as a councillor within Division 3, our residents, our suburbs run from Leichhardt and 1 Mile all the way through to Goodnow. Each and every suburb is very, very important to Councillor Fechner and myself, and certainly very important to the City of Ipswich. But I think what the CBD redevelopment does do is provide enormous employment opportunities for residents all throughout Ipswich and Division 3. And I hope to see many people travelling from Goodnow and Springfield Way into Ipswich CBD for employment opportunities.
I think also, if you do proceed as chair, the area of consultation with the CBD traders, as well as the shoppers, the people who will be, and Ipswich residents who will be visiting there, is vitally important to make sure we get that right. Councillor Milligan.
Mayor, as I believe I mentioned at the General Purpose Committee meeting, that this is the largest project that this council in this term will be undertaking, and that it is of great importance that we get it correct and right for the City of Ipswich collectively. Both the employment opportunities plus the commercial opportunities for the City of Ipswich to prosper. This is the jewel in the crown, and we must get it correct. The establishment of the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee, it will be the mechanism for the general public, for the residents of Ipswich City, regardless of where they reside in the local government area, to be able to have input, and that's very important. And I totally support Councillor Doyle's statements before that anyone on this committee must be committed to community consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. I'll just move back. I'll have to move for a variation of the. So I'll just move back.
Do we have a mover and second? I'll move it.
I just want to make sure that who was the original mover? If I could just check there, Vicky. Councillor Milligan.
And Councillor Johnny.
And I think Councillor Johnny. So we're putting forward a variation which will include the membership as well as the who will chair it. May I ask for a variation from you whether you agree with that to change that motion? I'm getting that from Councillor Johnny and yourself.
Just need to identify the membership.
I think we identify the membership as being the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kunzelman, Councillor Johnnick, Councillor Milligan and myself.
Mayor?
Yes, Councillor
So
Milligan.
this variation to motion is to variation to item B. Is that correct?
Yes, for B.
Yes, item B goes and that becomes
Yes.
into part B.
So item A and C and D will remain the same. We've just varied B. Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll put the matter to vote. Those who are in favour, please raise your hand. Around the room, and it's unanimous. Thank you very much. It's exciting. We'll now request Councillor Madsen and Fechner to come back into the room. Oh, are they? So they have the 7-second delay, do they? Right, thank you very much, Councillors Madsen and Fechner. We're now moving on to notices of motion. This is the first time we're having this in our ordinary council meeting. So P1, notice of motion, use of captioning on live stream meetings. So, Councillor Ireland, did you wish to read it and move it?
That Ipswich City Council ensures that council meetings are accessible and inclusive for all people with a disability through the use of captioning on publicly available live stream meetings.
Might I have someone second that?
I'll second.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. I'll open up for discussion. Councillor
Mayor?
Milligan?
Can I just ask through yourself of Councillor Ireland that we've got there that it's the live stream, so are you intending that the captioning be on the live stream or on the recording, the playback?
Well, I'm looking at live streaming. If we're live streaming to the general public, then I think disability sector should be included in that.
I guess I'd like to propose a variation to that, I guess, and I guess ask for council to report back to us on options that we have to make sure that we can make this, to make our live streaming and the playback on YouTube to be more accessible to all parts of our community, and for that report to include costs and schedule and time. I think there might be a variety of options. I guess I asked for that variation. Councillor Ireland, would that be okay with you, or?
Doesn't really go to the intention of what I was trying to do in the disability sector, but I can live with that.
I guess my concern is we don't know the cost and what is the best way of doing that. I would like for us to make, I guess, a more informed decision. And I do support the intention behind the motion as well.
I just think that council used to have a disability access group that went for a couple of years and then it petered out. And I just think that we forget about the disability sector when we're live streaming and we want people to write in and make comments, but there's a section of our community that's not. So I'm not you know, like we're spending money on other things. I just think that we need to seriously, regardless of the cost, look at the live streaming.
Mayor?
Yes, I'll just deal with the variation first, if I can. So, Councillor Ireland, I took that you're okay with the variation, that we get a report back to us on the options that we can do to make the live streaming and the recording more accessible. I'll just check with Councillor Kunzelman if she's...
May I speak?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
I seconded this on because it's a matter of principle, but I'm certainly happy that it be costed and planned properly and advanced in that way. Thank you.
I think it's because I guess I'm more looking at also what are the options there, is
Yeah.
apart from captioning it, what else is there available as well.
Through the Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to confirm that requesting a report certainly doesn't represent a view that it will make a decision based on costs. It's just to explore the opportunities. I understand currently we have some technical limitations to doing it, so we just need to work out the best and most effective way that we can achieve the outcome, and I think that's what the report is about. Thank you.
I also note that we are having budget workshops at the moment as well, so I think we need to make sure we have a line item in there as well in contingency.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, sorry, Councillor Millions.
Yes, so just speaking to that variation, in that I completely agree with the sentiment of the motion raised by Councillor Ireland. My questioning was as to the capability, and I may be technically incorrect, the capability of getting the captioning on the live stream, as to whether that's capable or possible. I know I've seen it on live streams, but sometimes it's not completely, if it's using voice recognition, it may not be technically correct as to what has been stated. So with respect to that, I absolutely concur that it's a great idea moving forward, and even if we use someone to sign for people who are hearing impaired, we definitely need to investigate it. But I wouldn't like us to make a decision on say to do something that we are not physically capable of providing.
Thank you, Councillor Milligan. I'll speak as someone who's attended that monthly council meeting that opened up to representatives of disability service organisations, as well as NDIS and Department of Communities, and also as someone who's a former president of the coordinating organisation for the disabled Ipswich. I thoroughly applaud this, and I would love to support this motion. So if there's no other discussion, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour for the varied, thank you. It's unanimous, thank you. We'll now move on to notice of motion, P2, recognition of David Palkey. Councillor Ireland, since you moved this, do you wish to stand up and read the motion out?
Yes. I move that Ipswich City Council recognise the contribution of David Pelkey to Rosewood and surrounds and his long-standing efforts to establish a local library with the installation of a plaque next to the official Rosewood Library opening plaque.
Thank you. May I have someone second that motion before we go to discussion? Councillor Tully's seconding that. Thank you. I'll now open that up for discussion.
David Pelkey was the councillor for Division 10. He served this city from 1991 to 2018. In 1995, former Mayor John Nugent promised a library for Rosewood during his election campaign. That was 25 years ago. Now my esteemed colleagues are beginning to understand that it takes 15 to 20 years to get a major infrastructure project completed. David never gave up the dream of a library for Rosewood. He sat beside me for 14 years and pestered councillors for a library for his residents every 2 weeks. I believe that David should have recognition, not honour, but recognition for his tenacity and drive to get something for the country. The normal way we recognise people is by way of a plaque. I ask my fellow councillors to look favourably on this motion to recognise his service to Ipswich and in particular his beloved Rosewood.
Before I go to more discussion, I'll just bring in the policy that we have in council, which is the naming procedure policy, and in particular item paragraph 1.4.11, which states that estate names, the preamble to this, the objectives. The objectives of this procedure is to ensure consistency of the naming and renaming of all roads, private roads, parks, bridges and places within the Ipswich local government area, and ensure easy identification of trouble-free locations and access to all properties within the Ipswich local government area, especially emergency services of Australia Post. Under that, paragraph 1.4.11 states that estate names, business names, product names, religious names or themes, political names or themes, developer, consultant, and council staff or councillor names are not acceptable. I also note that during the election campaign, the issue of the dismissed councillors having bridges and roads named after them was raised many times at the forums held by the Queensland Times, which had thousands and thousands of people watching them. This was brought up with us all, so a number of us here made a pre-election commitment not to name any roads or bridges, or to remove the names of those dismissed councillors. So I'll say that again, to remove the names of those dismissed councillors from the bridges and roads that are around our city. So I guess we're looking at Council Islanders asking us to provide that honour, or that recognition, as she has said, to a dismissed councillor for what I will say is essentially doing his job in advocating for his community. So I think this might be a bit contentious. It was on the front page of the Queensland Times today, but I'll open it up for discussion in those parameters.
I'd like to begin my comments and discussion around this by saying that I acknowledge the former councillor David Polkey's service to Rosewood and surrounding areas, and my comments certainly don't relate to anything he has done or hasn't done specifically. Councillor Ireland, you did mention that recognition usually comes in the form of a plaque. I respectfully disagree and suggest that recognition comes in many different forms, and certainly if we don't agree here today that Mr Polkey is recognised via a plaque, recognition can come in the form of an invitation to an opening. There's all sorts of opportunities. My personal view is that I don't agree with politicians, local councillors having their name to any public assets. It just goes against the grain for me. But more importantly, our constituents, I don't believe it's consistent with community expectation or in line with the values of this newly elected council. But I'd like to raise a bigger, more general comment. I think the issue needs further consideration. The Mayor has referred to our current public monuments and memorials policy, and I really think that policy needs some work. I think there's an opportunity to do some further work in this space and tighten up the policies and procedures to make it a lot clearer and just ensure it is consistent with public expectation. And also consider whether or not Ipswich City Council's new procedures around councillors being prohibited from engaging in electioneering practices during their term. Name recognition is considered a key component to being re-elected. So I guess that's a bit of an area that I think we can explore further and will help us make the decisions.
Thank you. Councillor Milligan?
I would like to express that, yes, I agree with Councillor Ireland in that I would like to personally acknowledge the dedication of the work performed by Mr David Polkey when he was a former councillor of Ipswich City Council in gaining or obtaining the Rosewood Library project to be commenced. In terms of the notice of motion, I personally cannot put my hand up to agree with something that is currently contrary to public monuments and memorials policy of the City of Ipswich, or the procedure. So just with respect to that, I do give respect to Mr. Palkey for his dedication and his work in performing his role, but it is definitely contrary to our procedures, and that's my position on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Wigan. Councillor Kunzelman.
My thoughts on this are not actually about Councillor Polkey, but about the perception that we will be creating a precedent here, and that maybe our new council doesn't want to be associated with that precedent.
Very good point, Councillor Kunzelman. Councillor Madsen.
I concur with what Councillor Milligan said on the matter. Councillor Polkey is well spoken of in many parts of Division 1.
Former councillor.
Well, former councillor. Many parts of Division 1 that were in the former Division 10. They feel that he represented their interests quite strongly on this council, or the previous council. But I need greater clarity as to how this notice of motion fits within the broader policy that was adopted. And I personally feel quite rushed as to making a decision as to whether this is something that the community wants. But I must concede to Councillor Ireland that I very much believe that consideration needs to be made as to how former Councillor Palkey's pursuit of this library is recognised, because he very much was a champion of this project.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. I guess before calling a vote on this, my views are you've got to look at someone's contribution holistically, and obviously I've known the dismissed councillor, former councillor Palkey, for a long, long time, and attended many community meetings, and obviously we can talk about the library. But I'll also talk about the legacy he left and the previous council left. The former council brought some shame to this city. It's going to take us a long time to get back, to attract investment, for people to take that stain off our name. So whilst he did good things, there are also things that the Windage report is quite clear that the previous council didn't do as well. So I could not give that honour to someone who's a dismissed councillor, is my personal perception. And I also note that I think there's a community expectation that none of the dismissed councillors deserve that honour. And I also believe, I also acknowledge and concur with the point that Councillor Kunzelman made with regards to the precedent that this would set, especially this new council. So on that, I'll then call to a vote. The motion again is that Ipswich City Council ensures that, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one, that Ipswich City Council recognise the contributions of David Palkey to Rosewood and surrounds, and his long-standing efforts to establish a local library with the installation of a plaque next to the official Rosewood Library opening plaque. Those in favour, please raise your hand. I'll call by division at Councillor Ireland, Councillor Tully. I'll then call for those against. Please raise your hand. By division is Councillor Madsen, Councillor Fechner, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Kunzelman, Councillor Jonik, Councillor Milligan and myself. Thank you very much, and no one abstaining. Noting this, it was probably not an item I was going to bring up before budget or strategic priorities, but I do like to do a supplementary motion to this, is may we have a report on all things that are named in the Ipswich City Council area that are named after dismissed councillors. So I'm calling for a supplementary motion to a report on all things that are named after dismissed councillors, and for that to come to the next ordinary meeting. On all community assets. On all community assets named after dismissed council. I'll move that. Do I have someone who will second that? Councillor Kunzelman. I'll open that up for discussion. Councillor Milligan.
Through you, Mayor. I ask of Councillor Doyle whether she would like to maybe make a suggestion with the item that she raised earlier, with where we need to give absolute clarity in our policy for public monuments and memorials policy?
I'd
Or
say,
would that be done as a second supplementary?
What I'd say is that we can workshop that. We don't need a council motion, but I have noted that we should workshop those policies to get clarity. Councillor Fechner?
Mayor, by a report, do you mean a list of all of the community assets?
Yes, just a report, just so we know, we can identify them.
So that we can identify them. Okay.
So, through the Mayor,
Yes.
perhaps we can say the report listing all community assets,
Yep. I'm happy with that.
all infrastructure.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Kunzelman, since you seconded?
Just through you,
Yes, please.
Mayor, I note that that policy is not due for review until October, so we need to bring forward that review.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Councillor Fechner?
Just to confirm, it's for public noting, just so that we can have a.
It's just a report. We aren't making any decision. I think if we're looking at updating the policy, we need to know where we're at, because there could be, we need to look at the implications of that as well, if there was a name change. Agreed, it's just a report with a list. I'll then take it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I'll call by division. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item Q, which is questions on notice. I've not received any. In that case, I will now call the meeting to a close at 10:47. Thank you very much, and I hope for those out there that the sound and cameras were much better. And thank you to Ipswich Civic Centre for supporting us in providing this technology today. Thank you.